didn't lose my job loudly. There was no argument, no dramatic firing, no security escort. I lost it quietly, the kind of quiet that ruins you. One day I had a key card, a desk, a future I could explain to my parents. The next day, I had a meeting invite titled Quick Sync. I didn't even feel nervous. That's what still gets me. I had been with the company for 6 years. 6 years of late nights. 6 years of being reliable. 6 years of fixing other people's mistakes quietly so no one looked bad. I trained half the department, including Mark. Mark was charming. Mark was ambitious. Mark had a way of repeating your ideas in meetings slightly louder and getting credit for them. He also happened to be my manager. And my friend. At least I thought he was. HR was already there. That was my first clue. My manager didn't look at me when I walked in. He kept his hands folded like he was praying. The HR rep smiled the way people smile when they've already made a decision. "This won't take long," she said. It did. They said there had been concerns. Concerns about my conduct. Concerns about my professional boundaries. Concerns about something that allegedly happened after work drinks. I laughed. Actually laughed. Because I don't drink. I leave early. I go home. They slid a paper across the table. A statement. Unsigned. Anonymous. But detailed. Painfully detailed. Enough that someone had rehearsed it. I looked at Mark. Finally. He still wouldn't meet my eyes. "Is this coming from you?" I asked. He hesitated. "Just long enough." "We're just following procedure," he said. That was the moment my stomach dropped. Not because I was guilty, but because I understood. He didn't need me anymore. And I knew something about him. They gave me a choice. Resign quietly. Or let it escalate. I signed. My hands were steady. My voice was calm. That scared them a little. They gave me a choice. Resign quietly. Or let it escalate. I signed. My hands were steady. My voice was calm. That scared them a little. By the time I got home, my access was gone. Email. Files. Contacts. 6 years erased in an afternoon. Colleagues stopped texting. Friends went silent. Not because they believed it. Because association is dangerous. That's how reputations actually die. I didn't defend myself. I didn't post. I didn't explain. I didn't beg. I disappeared. And in that silence, something else surfaced. Memory. 3 years earlier. Late night. Just Mark and me in the office. He was stressed. Drunk on ambition. Careless. He told me about the client kickbacks. About the expense reports he adjusted. About how no one ever checks if you sound confident. He laughed. I didn't. I saved the emails anyway. Not for revenge. Just in case. I sat on my couch that night in the dark. No TV. No music. Just the sound of my own breathing and one thought repeating. They buried me without proof. So I decided something. I wouldn't dig myself out. I'd let them build the monument first. For the first month, I didn't exist. That wasn't an exaggeration. It was a decision everyone around me made without discussing it. My name stopped coming up in meetings. My desk was cleared before the week ended. My projects were reassigned like they'd never had an owner. That's how erasure works. Not with noise. With efficiency. The rumor takes a shape. I started hearing things through old coworkers who still whispered my name carefully, like it might summon trouble. Some said I was inappropriate. Some said I was unstable. One said I'd crossed a line with someone important. The details changed. The damage didn't. And Mark said nothing, which made his silence louder than any accusation. 6 weeks later, Mark was promoted. Senior leadership, bigger office, public congratulations. LinkedIn post, company-wide email. A natural leader, they said. Trusted, they said. Proven integrity. I stared at the screen longer than I should have. Not because I was angry. Because I was fascinated. He climbed faster than expected, which meant something else was coming. 6 weeks later, Mark was promoted. Senior leadership, bigger office, public congratulations. LinkedIn post, company-wide email. A natural leader, they said. Trusted, they said. Proven integrity. I stared at the screen longer than I should have. Not because I was angry. Because I was fascinated. He climbed faster than expected, which meant something else was coming. People kept asking why I didn't fight it. Why I didn't sue. Why I didn't clear my name. Because clearing your name requires someone willing to listen. And I needed them comfortable first. Truth is only powerful when it has witnesses. I took a contract role. Lower pay. Temporary. No title worth mentioning. At a firm that consulted for my old company. Different department. Different floor. Same building. When HR asked why I wanted it, I said, I don't mind being invisible. That wasn't a lie. I took a contract role. Lower pay. Temporary. No title worth mentioning. At a firm that consulted for my old company. Different department. Different floor. Same building. When HR asked why I wanted it, I said, I don't mind being invisible. That wasn't a lie. Consultants see everything. Especially when they're underestimated. One afternoon, I was added to an internal thread by mistake. Mark's name was everywhere. Expense approvals. Vendor adjustments. Unusual reimbursements. Familiar patterns. Worse this time. Sloppier. Confidence does that. I realized something sitting there at my borrowed desk. They didn't ruin my life. They gave me distance. And distance gives you perspective. Mark didn't win because he was smart. He won because people didn't look closely. And people who don't look closely never notice when the ground shifts. I went home that night and opened the folder I'd kept. Emails. Attachments. Dates. I added the new ones. Labeled it carefully. Not revenge. Just timeline. Not justice. Timing. Because lies collapse slowly, and then all at once. And when they do, everyone pretends they didn't help build them. When companies sense risk, they don't fix it. They redirect it. I saw the shift before anyone said it out loud. It started with an email labeled routine review. Those are never routine. Suddenly, meetings were rescheduled. Approvals slowed down. Mark started CCing people he'd never included before. Fear makes people visible. A junior analyst named Evan was pulled into HR. Evan was quiet. New. Eager to please. The kind of employee companies love until they need someone expendable. Whispers started again. Someone in finance messed up. Expense fraud. Policy violations. The words were familiar. Too familiar. Mark cornered me in the hallway one afternoon. First time he'd done that since the elevator. Have you heard anything? He asked. About what? I pretended to think. Just the audit. His eyes darted. I mean about finance. I shrugged. Consultants don't get that kind of detail. He nodded too quickly. And walked away. That was the first time I saw it. Fear. 2 days later, an invoice hit my queue. Wrong vendor code. Wrong approval chain. Mark's digital signature at the bottom. The attached notes referenced a manual workaround. I checked the date. Same week he'd been promoted. People get careless when they think they're untouchable. Evan was fired on a Friday. No announcement. No explanation. Just gone. By Monday, his desk was empty. By Tuesday, his name wasn't mentioned again. That's how quickly the company moved on. I watched Mark accept condolences he didn't deserve. I watched him thank leadership for handling it swiftly. And I understood the truth. They didn't care who was guilty. They just needed someone quiet. That night, I couldn't sleep. Because this wasn't about me anymore. This was about watching the same lie destroy someone else. And I had the proof. The entire timeline. The emails. The approvals. The pattern. All pointing in one direction. Because exposure without precision just creates chaos. And chaos protects the powerful. I needed clarity. And I needed witnesses who couldn't look away. I didn't report anything. I forwarded one email. To myself. From a shared server. With metadata intact. Then I waited. The board didn't announce itself. Boards never do. They arrive quietly, like a pressure change you feel before a storm. Suddenly, people who never asked questions before started asking them. Mark stopped walking fast. That was the first sign. He used to move like someone who believed the building belonged to him. Now he lingered in doorways, checked who was watching, lowered his voice. Confidence had been replaced with calculation. And calculation is slower. One afternoon, his assistant whispered something to him. Mark's face drained. He didn't bring his laptop. He didn't bring notes. He didn't even grab his coffee. He just stood up and followed her. I watched him disappear into a conference room on the top floor. The one with no windows. While he was gone, I received 3 clarification requests. Not from HR. From legal. They wanted timelines. Approval logic. Reasoning. The kind of questions that don't come with reassurance. I answered carefully. Factually. Emotionless. That's how you make truth dangerous. That evening, he emailed me directly. Subject line, quick question. Body. Hey, hope you're well. Just checking if you've been asked about anything unusual lately. I stared at it for a long time. Then replied. Only to confirm documentation accuracy. Nothing else. No warmth. No explanation. He didn't reply. By Friday, Mark's name was everywhere. Not in gossip. In documentation. Every exception. Every override. Every rushed approval. When you build a system around yourself, you forget one thing. You become the single point of failure. They asked if I could come in early Monday. I said yes. They didn't ask why I thought they needed me. That told me everything. I opened the timeline folder one last time. Read it straight through. No anger. No satisfaction. Just inevitability. I realized something then. Mark wasn't afraid of losing his job. He was afraid of being seen clearly. I could walk in Monday and hand them everything. Emails. Proof. Context. Or I could say nothing. Let the machine finish what it started. Because once momentum turns, it doesn't need a push. It just needs silence. Mark didn't wait for Monday. That was his first mistake. Saturday night, 11:47 p.m. My phone buzzed. A message from Mark. Not work email. Not LinkedIn. My personal number. We need to talk, please. No greeting. No confidence. Just urgency. I didn't reply. 5 minutes later. I know you're aware of some things. I just want to explain. Explain. That word only appears when someone knows the story has already been told without them. He called. I let it ring. Called again. Then again. Finally, a voicemail. His voice was unsteady, breath too fast. I'm being set up. Someone's trying to make me the fall guy. You know how this place works. You know I wouldn't do anything illegal. I saved it. Not because I needed it. Because he just crossed a line. Companies have one rule they enforce ruthlessly. Don't interfere with an investigation. Contacting a consultant outside official channels. Trying to influence testimony. Pressuring someone for silence. That wasn't just fear. That was evidence. I arrived early. HR was already waiting. So was legal. 3 people, 1 recorder, 1 glass of untouched water. They didn't ask me if I felt wronged. They didn't ask about the accusation that ended my career. They asked one question. Can you walk us through the approval structure? So I did. Slowly. Calmly. With dates. I didn't accuse. I mapped. When I finished, legal asked, has anyone contacted you directly about this review? I paused. Just long enough to feel real. Yes, I said, and slid my phone across the table. Voicemail queued. Timestamp visible. They didn't play it immediately. They didn't need to. That's how you know it matters. While I was in the meeting, an internal notice went out. Mark was placed on administrative leave. Effective immediately. Access revoked. Badge deactivated. He didn't even know yet. My phone buzzed again. Please, I trusted you. That one hurt him more than it hurt me. Because it exposed the truth. He never trusted me. He assumed I was safe. I didn't feel victory. I didn't feel relief. I felt alignment. Like something that had been crooked for years had finally clicked into place. HR thanked me. Legal nodded. Then one of them said something revealing. We want to ensure this doesn't escalate. Not doesn't happen again. Doesn't escalate. That's when I knew. They were never going to protect me. They were just trying to contain damage. I stood up, smiled politely, and said, I understand. They didn't realize yet. But in that moment, the leverage changed hands. The silence after Mark's suspension lasted exactly 12 hours. That's how long it took for panic to find a voice. Tuesday morning, 8:02 a.m. Company-wide email. We are conducting an internal review related to procedural inconsistencies. There is no evidence of systemic wrongdoing at this time. No names. No details. Just enough words to calm investors and confuse employees. But people don't read emails. They read between them. Desks went quiet. Slack channels slowed. People stopped making eye contact in the hallways. Because everyone knew. Reviews don't start unless something is already burning. He didn't text. Didn't call. He showed up. Security shouldn't have let him in, but old access habits die hard. I was leaving the building when I saw him. Standing near the elevators. Wrinkled suit. Red eyes. No confidence left. He looked smaller. I didn't do this, he said. Not hello. Not my name. I know, I replied. That broke him. You always knew, didn't you? He asked. I didn't answer. Because the truth was worse than yes. They told me to approve it, he said quickly. Legal, finance, everyone, it was already decided. I stayed silent. Silence makes people talk. They said you'd never come back. That you were expendable. There it was. The word they used. I can fix this, he said. I'll tell them it was my call, fully. I'll take the hit. He paused. But I need you to back me. Just say you didn't know anything. I looked at him, really looked, and realized something chilling. He still thought this was a negotiation. No, I said. You don't get to choose the ending anymore. His face went pale. I defended you, he said. When they wanted someone to blame, I slowed them down. I nodded. I know, I said. That's why you lasted longer. That was the moment he understood. Not that he was innocent, but that he was never important. Someone from HR appeared, followed by security. They didn't look at Mark. They looked at me. Everything okay? They asked. I smiled. Yes, I said. We're done. Mark was escorted out. Not in handcuffs. Worse. In silence. That night, I uploaded one file. Not publicly. Not yet. Just to a secure legal repository. Emails. Approvals. Version histories. A map of decisions made long before Mark touched anything. The kind of file that doesn't threaten. It waits. By Wednesday morning, legal called me. Their tone was different now. Careful. Respectful. We'd like to discuss next steps, they said. I knew what that meant. They weren't investigating anymore. They were negotiating. By Thursday afternoon, the word investigation had disappeared from internal emails. It was replaced with something softer. Resolution. That's corporate language for please, don't burn us down. The room was glass-walled. Top floor. City below us, distant and indifferent. 3 people sat across from me. Legal. HR. Someone introduced only as executive oversight. No Mark. No finance. No witnesses. Just negotiators. They didn't waste time. We're prepared to offer a full severance package, legal said. Extended benefits, a non-disclosure agreement. HR slid the folder across the table. It was thick. Generous. Quiet. They didn't say sorry. They didn't say wrong. They didn't say you were used. Because those words create records. Not my silence. My patience. Because if this ended cleanly, they could. Blame Mark. Call it isolated. Move on. And no one would ever look deeper. Is there anything else we should be aware of? Oversight asked. His voice was calm. Too calm. They already knew the answer. They just needed to hear which version I'd choose. I didn't mention the repository. Didn't mention the timestamps. Didn't mention the approval chain that ran past Mark, past legal, past Oversight's own calendar invites. Instead, I asked one question. Is Mark being terminated? A pause. Yes, HR said. For cause. I nodded. I want my record corrected, I said. Publicly, internally, everywhere. They exchanged glances. That can be arranged. And I want no retaliation, I added. Against anyone who cooperates in the future. Oversight leaned back. Of course. That was the lie. But I let it stand. I signed. Slowly. Carefully. The room exhaled. They thought this was over. 2 weeks later, Mark's LinkedIn headline changed. Former director, seeking new opportunities. No mention of why he left. No mention of the review. Just silence. The kind that follows people. My name was cleared. Quietly. No announcement. No apology tour. Just a corrected record, buried in internal systems most people never check. But recruiters notice. They always do. The repository stayed untouched. No uploads. No leaks. No anonymous tips. Just a digital ghost waiting where only I knew it existed. Revenge doesn't always scream. Sometimes it waits. Because the truth doesn't expire. Emails don't forget. And companies change leadership. Executives retire. Oversight shifts. And someday, someone curious will pull a thread. And when they do, the story won't need my voice. I didn't destroy them. I didn't expose them. I didn't forgive them. I made them afraid of the future. And that lasts longer than any scandal.